it rarely happens that everybody, all of us have done some online course or the other. It very rarely happens that you engage with the coach and you come close and you work together. But in our case, it was an exception. I went to Bangalore, I met her, she also came to Mumbai. So, as you know, गुरु पिता समान और माता समान होते हैं. क्योंकि ये मेरे से छोटी है, हमने सोचा कि दोस्ती बन जाए. And she is a very good speaker. She has, and don't take my word for it, because she's, you will soon find out. As I said, if you have to speak well, you have to listen well. If you have to write well, you have to read well. So she is not just a storyteller, she is a story spotter and story seeker with a very inquisitive mind. And a little about the data element of storytelling. You know, stories, nowadays everybody says I'm a storyteller. But there is a limitation because stories tend to be emotional and sometimes we get swayed by the personality of the person, storyteller. If you find that a good looking lady and she's a good speaker, you tend to get carried away. But the data holds the story together. So stories are important and data is also important. Now look at the other way. If you find somebody, an investor, in a lift and you have to give an elevator pitch, you can't obviously give a copy of the balance sheet. You have to engage. And within half a minute you have to tell a story. So that's where the power of story comes in. So there has been an experiment conducted many years ago. So what they did was, they recorded the impulses, brain impulses of the storyteller as well as the audience. And what they found, when the storyteller is telling the stories, the brain waves of the storyteller and the listeners, they are in harmony, they are in they synchronize with each other. But when you give a presentation full of figures, there are no brain waves and there is no matching. Similarly, neurochemicals are released when a person tells a story. Neurochemicals such as dopamine, oxytocin, and it has been proved. So the potent combination is storytelling and data. So data holds the story together. With these words, I would request her to start her presentation. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. Have you had lunch? Yes. So फिर energy होनी चाहिए. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Bhattacharya and I'm a storyteller. When you expect a storyteller to show up, of course there's going to be some story sharing for sure. Have you heard of Morocco? Morocco is in Africa. Yeah, you've heard of Morocco? Morocco has a marketplace which is called Marrakesh. Marrakesh एक ऐसी जगह है. Does everybody understand Hindi a little bit? Anyone who doesn't understand Hindi? Everybody understands? So it's okay for me to go a little bilingual. So Marrakesh is like a marketplace, and back in the day when trade used to happen, a lot of people from the Mediterranean, etc., would go through Marrakesh. So Marrakesh became a center spot for all storytelling to happen because people would rest there with their camels and with their horses. वहाँ पर अपने tents pitch करते थे and they would do a lot of story sharing that would happen. From different continents, people would be traveling for trade. Now Marrakesh is also a place, because it's a marketplace, वहाँ spice market है, वहाँ पर carpets की market है, वहाँ पर ऐसे भी stores and shops हैं where you find a lot of artifacts and antique jewelry, etc. So Marrakesh में एक ऐसा store है जहाँ पर antiques मिलते हैं and there are some sort of ornaments and other things which are found. So there was a European collector who heard that there is this one store जहाँ पर बहुत अच्छी चीजें मिलती हैं, and he was time and again told by people that he had tea with in the tea houses कि अगर आपको collectors items देखने हैं, then you must go to that particular store. उनको बहुत specific directions दिए गए आप स्ट्रेट जाएंगे, स्पाइस मार्केट क्रॉस करेंगे, फिर एक बेकरी आएगी, वहाँ से लेफ्ट लेंगे, फिर सीधा जाएंगे, फिर कुछ होगा, फलाना फलाना, बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेटेड रास्ता था. But the European man was so enthusiastic. He spent almost an hour going into the streets of Marrakesh looking for that store. When he finally found that store, he was surprised to see that things, of course, was very, very exclusive. बहुत सुंदर चीजें थी. But every time he looked at something and he asked, ये कितने का है? How much does this cost? The storekeeper said, ये free है. So he looked at a brooch and he asked, ये brooch कितने का है? The storekeeper said, ये free है. The European was very surprised. He looked at the hairpin, which was exotic. He said, how much is this hairpin for? And the owner said, it is free. No, the European said, hang on, is everything free in this store? And the storekeeper said, yes, everything is free. You can pick up anything you like and take it back home with you. But you realize when you take it back home and you keep it in your beautiful, aesthetically designed European home, कि ये बहुत garish लगेगा, ये बहुत unattractive लगेगा, ये बहुत out of place लगेगा. और थोड़े दिन के बाद, कुछ महीनों और कुछ सालों के बाद आपको ये भी नहीं पता रहेगा कि आपने क्यों खरीदा था. And it will find its way into a dustbin or it will be thrown away because it will have no value, which is why it's for free. So the European said, I still don't understand. So what are you doing here? He said, I sell stories. आप जो ऑब्जेक्ट पे हाथ रखेंगे, it's free for you to take that. But if you want to value that product or that object, then you must ask me for the story. I charge for the story of where it comes from. And that's exactly what is true for pretty much every object, even object which is collector's item, which is jewelry, that everything needs a story. If it doesn't have a story, it has no value. And it's not just me saying it, and it is not just a storekeeper or a seller in Marrakesh saying it, but there are people like Rob Walker who say it. Now, Rob Walker is a New Yorker, and he is a journalist who writes in New York Times. He has published many papers and he has run many studies. Rob Walker ने एक दिन उनके साथ एक इत्तेफाक किया. He had a cup and वो कप टूट गया और वो कप उनके पास बहुत सालों से था. He went around looking for an exact same cup and he wanted to have the same cup for coffee. His friend said, are you mad? You can pick up any cup you want. Why do you want exactly the same cup? So Rob said, उसके साथ मेरा emotional attachment है. And that's when he realized that objects के साथ हमारा emotional connection होता है. That's what gives them the power and the value. Which is why he ran a study, and this study was called the significant object study. Significant object study का purpose यही था कि how do you make sometimes insignificant objects extremely significant with the power of stories. This is what Rob Walker did along with his friend. He went to many thrift stores. Thrift stores में जाकर उन्होंने literally $2 से नीचे की 100 objects खरीदे. So they must have gone across New York to many thrift stores. Randomly छोटी छोटी चीजें, जैसे कि एक फेल्ट का चूहा, एक छोटी सी फिगरीन, एक क्रिसमस का ग्लोब, जिसमें क्रिसमस ग्लोब यू मस्ट हैव सीन, जिसमें आप उल्टा करें तो वो स्नो फ्लेक जैसे लगते हैं. They picked up random things. 100 objects, every object was under $2. अब उन्होंने एक टीम ऑफ राइटर्स इकट्ठी करी. उन राइटर्स का एक ही पर्पस था, to write beautiful write-ups to show that this is a genuine, authentic product. It was owned by somebody और उसकी एक back story है. And these were all creative writers which were hired by Rob and his friend. ये सारे products की picture इन stories के साथ upload करी गई eBay. You know about eBay? Yeah. Online store है जहाँ पर bidding होती है products की. Imagine करिए, हर product $2 से नीचे का था, लेकिन जब उसकी स्टोरी के साथ उस प्रोडक्ट को eBay पे डाला गया, उसकी कॉस्टिंग उन्होंने रखी anywhere from $30 to $80. Some products were priced at $120, $200, $500. Guess what? Everything sold off. And total जो उन्होंने पैसे खर्चे थे on 100 products under $2, we are looking at roughly about $200 being spent, less than 200, and they made 50 times the profit. And he published that report and that study to say एक कहानी, एक object को बहुत ज़्यादा significant बना देती है. And then they came out, he wrote a book also, and that book is actually very expensive. I think 8 or 9,000 rupees for that book if you want to purchase it on Amazon. वो US से deliver होती है. उसके अंदर हर object के साथ क्या attached कहानी थी वो लिखा हुआ है. If you're curious to know about it. But he came clean and they donated the money someplace, so he didn't make the profit. But it was about the study. Now, the Bears told a story about diamonds, right? All the ads that came, they told a story. They said, how can you make 2 months' salary last forever? The diamond engagement ring. So even here, there was a story attached. Now, there are multiple layers of stories which exist when you look at the jewelry industry. Would you agree कि बहुत सारी stories already होती हैं? Actually, they are pre-existing stories. जैसे कि a birthday story. It's a significant milestone birthday. किसी का 16th birthday है या 18th birthday है and parents want to buy a diamond pendant on a gold chain to gift to their daughter. Maybe they want to buy a bracelet because it's her 21st birthday. Maybe they want to buy something else for their son because it's a significant day. Engagements are big, weddings are big, anniversaries are big. आजकल तो breakup भी big है. So there's a giving away gift that happens that we are, happily breaking away and moving out of this marriage. And divorce celebration, I'll give you something, you give me something. Everything already has a story. But bigger than that, if you want that product or that ornament to be valued, then there has to be a story attached to that ornament. Now, where are the stories of ornaments or metals? Gold की story क्या हो सकती है? आप सोच के देखिए. अब हम interactive हो जाएंगे and we'll talk to each other. Folks who are sitting at the back, feel free to come forward. बीच में इतना सारा gap रखने का कोई फायदा नहीं. Keep moving forward. अब आप बताइए. Tell me, where are the stories? उसकी क्या कहानी हो सकती है? एक होता है buyer का, consumer का कहानी. I have a story in my head. I want to go purchase something, and it's significant for me. I'll always remember कि ये वाली ring मुझे कब मिली थी, ये वाले कड़े कब मिले थे, ये वाले earrings कब मिले थे. There is a story attached which is in my head. But what is the story of the product? Anybody?
Like we can have a story for diamonds came from yellow. We can make a story of it.
Absolutely. So the origin story of the gem itself. ये emerald कहाँ से आया? ये diamond कहाँ से आया? Excellent.
Origin of the source.
Yes, the source. क्योंकि वो source matter करता है कहाँ से बना. So there's an attachment that happens. You were saying something.
Sometimes the product is so good, it catches, it surprises the people who are watching that product.
Yeah.
At that same time, you have to instantly connect. This is going to create a legacy for your next generation. I sold premium watches. I couldn't have imagined, but seeing this, the woman loves aesthetic value. Being a brother, often we have to do with the women because they are one most prominent buyers. So we have to create something that will last long. Like they could stay in their older age to their grandson, or grandson should say to their parents कि पापा आपने तो क्या दिलाया मेरे मम्मी को, मेरे दादा ने मेरे दादी को दिलाया था.
How nice.
That should be the, I think that plays a lot.
How beautiful. It becomes a family heirloom. It's something that you pass on. सिल्क की साड़ियों की जो फोल्ड होता है उसको पलटना पड़ता है. Do you know that? For people who don't know, men you don't know that. So silk sarees अगर आप बहुत लंबे टाइम तक, not just silk, any साड़ी, if you keep it folded and in the आजकल तो वैसे ही ladies बहुत कम साड़ियाँ पहनती हैं. So you know how they need to be stored. Have you heard there's a new way of storing sarees now? So there are these wooden sticks, or what are they called? Stands, or you just roll. जैसे कपड़ा मार्केट में कपड़ा मिलता है रोल में से, कि वो उससे खराब नहीं होती साड़ियाँ बिकॉज फोल्ड से कट जाती है. पहले होता था पश्मीना शॉल और साड़ियाँ दादी और नानी की एयरलूम्स की तरह मिलेगी, लेकिन कपड़ा भी लास्ट नहीं करता. और आजकल तो वैसे इतना मिलावट है कपड़े में, विच इज वेयर योर ज्वेलरी बिकम्स अ एयरलूम. सो देयर इज अ प्रॉमिस ऑफ अ स्टोरी दैट इज गोइंग टू कम. बट यू राइट, देयर कैन ऑलवेज बी अ स्टोरी विच इज अटैच्ड टू अ प्रोडक्ट. देयर आर लैब ग्रोन डायमंड्स, देयर कुड बी अ स्टोरी अबाउट इट टू. बट हाउ क्लिनिकल इट साउंड्स, नो, लैब ग्रोन.
Yes, absolutely.
है ना, थोड़ा सा लगता है जैसे कि टेस्ट ट्यूब, हाँ, टेस्ट ट्यूब के जैसा लगता है, क्लिनिकल है, जैसे देयर इज नो सेंस ऑफ अटैचमेंट. सो व्हाट डज इट टेल यू? दैट अ स्टोरी इज नॉट जस्ट एन origin that he made it in the lab. But a story that you tell must evoke the right sentiments and right emotions. Do you agree? जब दिल की तार छिड़ती है, वो जो दिल की तार छिड़ेगी और जो इमोशन होगा, दैट हैज टू बी द राइट सेट ऑफ इमोशन. अब मैं आपको ज्वेलरी वर्ल्ड से थोड़ा निकाल के कहीं और लेके चलूँगी. I think this must have been easily about 17-18 years ago. I was watching TV और SBI का एक ad आया TV पे, स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, जहाँ सारे बैंक्स बोलते थे कि ओल्ड एज में आप सर उठा के जिए, अपनी इन्वेस्टमेंट ऐसे करें कि सर उठा के जिए, किसी के सामने हाथ ना फैलाना पड़े. SBI took out an investment product और उन्होंने उसको जब दिखाना था कि व्हाट डज इट रियली मीन, उन्होंने उस एड में दिखाए, और वो मुंबई का एड था थी, क्योंकि इट्स एट अ चॉल लाइक हाउस. देयर इज अ मैन हु इज एन एल्डरली जेंटलमैन वेयरिंग अ गेंजी, बनियान, ओके, एंड आंटी जी इज सिटिंग ऑन द सोइंग मशीन, सिलाई कर रही है. अंकल आते हैं घर के अंदर एक न्यूज़पेपर लेकर. न्यूज़पेपर में आंटी को दिखा के बोलते हैं, भाग्यवान तुम छुप छुप के यही देखती हो ना, आज वैलेंटाइंस डे है और मैं तुम्हारे लिए कुछ लाया हूँ. व्हाट डू यू थिंक जस्ट हैपेंड? उन्होंने नहीं दिखाया न्यूज़पेपर में क्या है, लेकिन एक लाल छोटा सा डब्बा आया. व्हाट्स गोइंग ऑन हियर? क्या था न्यूज़पेपर में? छुप छुप के यही देखती हो, आज वैलेंटाइंस डे है, मैं तुम्हारे लिए कुछ लाया हूँ. देयर इज अ रेड बॉक्स दैट कम्स आउट. इट कुड बी, देखा आपने अंडर एस्टिमेट कर लिया उन लोगों को. SBI यही तो ब्रेक करना चाहता था परसेप्शन, और वो न्यूज़पेपर इसीलिए प्लांट किया गया उस स्टोरी के अंदर, दैट पीपल कैन इमेजिन. कुमकुम का एड न्यूज़पेपर में नहीं आता, न्यूज़पेपर में आता है ज्वेलरी का एड. उसमें कोई डायमंड होगा, इयररिंग्स या रिंग. आंटी जी शर्मा कर खोलती है डब्बा, कहती है हाय अब इस उम्र में मैं ये पहनूंगी. एंड देन अंकल सेज, हीरे को क्या पता तुम्हारी उम्र क्या है. ओके, डू यू रिमेंबर दैट एड?
Yes,
सम
yes.
ऑफ यू मे हैव सीन इट. हीरे को क्या पता तुम्हारी उम्र क्या है. This was to, now imagine how jewelry has been used to elevate the status of people. It's a chawl like house, it's an elderly couple जो सोच रहे हैं कि मेडिकल का खर्चा कहाँ से निकलेगा, and we must have insurance coverage और investment enough कि बच्चों से पैसे ना मांगने पड़े. SBI elevated it by just indicating that there's a jewelry that exists. That's the power of and status of jewelry. अब ये लाइन जो थी, हीरे को क्या पता कि तुम्हारी उम्र क्या है, मैंने बहुत वाह करी. मैं अपने फादर के साथ बैठ के ऐड देखी थी. मैंने कहा दिस इज अ वंडरफुल ऐड, कितनी अच्छा लाइन है. पापा ने बोला ये क्या कॉपी है. मैंने से ये कहाँ से कॉपी किया. नाउ आई एम गोइंग टू टेक यू इनटू द वर्ल्ड ऑफ स्पोर्ट्स. एक टेनिस प्लेयर थी, Martina Navratilova. She was a formidable tennis player. She was still playing at the age of 48, and she had amazing shots. And one day a journalist met this woman and he says, how are you playing at the age of 48? And she says, the ball doesn't know my age. And this was a rip-off from Ball Doesn't Know My Age, copy-pasted by SBI. Diamond doesn't know your age. That's the power of storytelling. अब ये इन्होंने वहाँ से रिप-ऑफ किया. एक तनिष्क का एड आया in 2021 नवंबर. आपको पता है इंटरनेशनल मेंस डे कब होता है?
रोज होता है.
18th November is International Men's Day. एक print ad आया International Men's Day, and this is how the print ad started. But now this was by Tanishq का एक product line है Mia. Have you heard of that? What is Mia doing? What kind of jewelry does Mia make?
Daily wear.
Daily wear jewelry for
Young
young women.
working.
Young working women, exactly. क्योंकि diamond is an indulgence, no? So they have these working women daily wear jewelry for women. उनका ad print ad है, लिखा हुआ सिर्फ शब्द है उसके अंदर, and it started like this. Our jewelry is for women, but our jewelry doesn't know that. Hairy chest or not, our pendants still swing the same way or something. I'm paraphrasing. It talks about anklets, it talks about earrings, and it talks about firm fingers don't know the difference. You know, our diamond doesn't know the difference between firm fingers or soft fingers, because they wanted to drive home that jewelry can be for men. अभी आपने बोला आपके प्रोफेशन में lot of times it's women you have to deal with because women come in as customers because traditionally women buy jewelry. But here, Tanishq Mia, when they took out the ad that our jewelry is for women, but our jewelry doesn't know that, and it doesn't know the difference. Who was their target audience on International Men's Day then? Men. Because the world is changing, we are embracing our sexuality now. There are many men who love to wear jewelry, and they're probably trying it in the safety of their bathrooms and the safety of their rooms. They're too embarrassed. अगर कभी मन है कुछ पहनने का ईयरिंग, शर्म आती है किसी ज्वेलरी स्टोर में जाएंगे, जजमेंट पास होगी that they are putting the earring शीशे में अपने ऊपर देख रहे हैं. They will say I'm buying it for a sister or a mother or a girlfriend. But there was a brand that told the story that you are welcome to step into our store. We will not judge you because our jewelry doesn't know the difference and anybody can wear it. Even men can wear it. So there is storytelling which is happening at that level as well. Okay? But moving on, the question is that do numbers also tell a story? It's easier to tell a story of a product, right? आपने बोला origin story बताऊंगी, कहाँ से मेरा emerald और diamond आया. आप product की बता सकते हैं, but do numbers tell stories? And that is the big question. आपको लगता है numbers में कहानियाँ हैं? एक एशियन पेंट्स का पुराना ऐड था, उसमें कहा था हर घर कुछ कहता है, मैं डिलीट करती हूँ, हर नंबर भी कुछ कहता है. So there's always a story behind the number. एक क्विक सवाल, ये एक कम्युनिटी है, ठीक है, और हमें इसका एरियल व्यू है. इफ यू वांट टू फिगर आउट व्हाट आर द प्रॉब्लम्स ऑन ग्राउंड, कैन यू टेल व्हाट आर द प्रॉब्लम्स ऑन ग्राउंड बाय लुकिंग एट इट फ्रॉम हियर? नो. क्या करना पड़ेगा अगर मुझे पता करना है ग्राउंड पे क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं? ग्राउंड लेवल पे जाना पड़ेगा. आई हैव टू जूम इन. इट्स सो सिंपल. नो, आई गो जूम इन एंड आई आस्क कि आपके घर में क्या प्लम्बिंग इश्यूज हैं, इलेक्ट्रिकल इश्यूज हैं, क्या रेप्टाइल्स घर के अंदर आते हैं, आपके घर से नियरेस्ट हाईवे कितना दूर है, हॉस्पिटल की एक्सेस है कि नहीं. आई आस्क देम एंड ग्राउंड लेवल पे देन आई लुक एट क्लस्टरिंग एंड आई सी किसको प्रॉब्लम है. सो इजी ना, जब मैप दिखाती हूँ, ऊपर से देखा नहीं, नीचे जाना पड़ेगा पता करने के लिए प्रॉब्लम. बट इट डजंट हैपन सो मच व्हेन वी आर लुकिंग एट नंबर्स. लुक एट दीज नंबर्स. ओके, यूनिसेफ ने बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग रिसर्च और डेटा कलेक्ट किया. उन्होंने कहा कि अबाउट 247 मिलियन चिल्ड्रन सब सहारन अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज में रहते हैं और उनको 2 से ज़्यादा डेप्रिविएशंस हैं. वो हो सकती है लैक ऑफ सैनिटेशन या फिर पुअर इन्फेंट फीडिंग. दे शेयर सम मोर शॉकिंग नंबर्स. 87 मिलियन बच्चे जो है वो सफ़र करते हैं 4 से 5 डेप्रिवेशंस में, और चाइल्ड पॉवर्टी के मल्टीपल ओवरलैपिंग रीजंस हो सकते हैं. पॉज. आपको पता है कितने मिलियंस ऑफ चिल्ड्रन सफ़र कर रहे हैं? कैन यू टेल मी द नंबर्स? 247 मिलियन. नंबर तो याद रह गया. आप अपने हाथ, पहले हाथ रखिए दिल के ऊपर, अपने दिल पे हाथ रखिए. आपको फीलिंग हुई? कैन यू फील द पेन ऑफ दोस 247 मिलियन चिल्ड्रन? Can you feel the pain of those 87 million children? You can't, right? At this point in time, it's just a really big number, but you don't feel anything here. That's exactly what's the problem. Save the Children, जो एक it's an NGO, and Save the Children has presence all over the world, and they were trying to raise funds for the well-being of children in Africa. अब वो उसी तरह का डेटा पब्लिश कर रहे थे जो यूनिसेफ ने दिया. मिलियंस ऑफ चिल्ड्रन आर सफरिंग. लेकिन इंटरेस्टिंगली वो इतने शॉकिंगली हाई नंबर पब्लिश कर रहे हैं, लेकिन फिर भी फंड्स नहीं आ रहे थे. लोग अपना जेब डीली करके पैसा नहीं दे रहे थे. दे वांटेड टू नो व्हाट डू वी डू. सो दे पार्टनर्ड विद वॉटन, द यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ पेंसिल्वेनिया. उन्होंने कहा क्या आप हमारे साथ एक स्टडी करेंगे सो दैट वी कैन फिगर आउट हाउ डू वी रेज बेटर फंड्स. वॉटन ने कहा ग्लैडली. दिस इज व्हाट वॉटन डू. उन्होंने अपने स्टूडेंट्स में बात फैलवा दी कि हम एक स्टडी कर रहे हैं जिसके लिए आपको सिर्फ 20 मिनट्स ऑफ योर टाइम डोनेट करना है. In exchange for giving your 20 minutes, we will give you $5 each. Now, lots of students signed up for the study. The day of the study when they arrived, they divided the student pool into Group A and Group B. जब Group A को एक हॉल में बुलाया गया, उनको एक प्रेजेंटेशन दी गई हार्डकोर नंबर्स, जैसे मैंने अभी दिखाया आपको, मिलियंस ऑफ चिल्ड्रन आर सफरिंग. और जो प्रेजेंटर था उसने बहुत सारे नंबर्स थ्रो करे और ज़्यादा, और जो ब्रोशोर था उसमें इन्फोग्राफिक्स और नंबर्स थे. 20 मिनट्स हुए. इन स्टूडेंट्स को सबको $5 दिया गया और बोला थैंक यू फॉर कमिंग. व्हेन दे वर लीविंग, बाहर एक डोनेशन बॉक्स था. एक वॉलंटियर ने पूछा आपने अभी अभी ये स्टडी अटेंड करी, वुड यू लाइक टू डोनेट फॉर द कॉज? बच्चे बड़े स्मार्ट थे. उन्होंने $5 का नोट डाला जेब में और निकाला थोड़ा सा लूज चेंज एंड ड्रॉप्ड इट इन द बॉक्स। पैरेलली जो ग्रुप बी था, दे वर ऑल्सो इन अ कॉन्फ्रेंस हॉल। उनको जो प्रेजेंटेशन दी गई वो थोड़ी सी डिफरेंट थी। जो ब्रोशोर था उसमें पहले 2 पेजेस डेडिकेटेड थे टू द स्टोरी ऑफ अ 7-year-old गर्ल कॉल्ड रोकिया, जो माली में रहती है। मैं थोड़ा पैराफ्रेज करूंगी, लेकिन कहानी कुछ इस तरह की थी। रोकिया is 7 years old. She lives in Mali in Africa. She wakes up at 6:30 in the morning, and then she has to walk 10 miles to fetch water while her brother gets to go to school. She is on an empty stomach when she walks. When her brother arrives at school, he gets his first meal, which is a nutritious meal at school. Rokia collects water, and by the time she comes back, it is time for her brother to have a midday meal in school, जो कि उसको फिर एक न्यूट्रिशियस मील मिलता है जिसमें XYZ चीजें होती हैं। रोकिया अभी खाली पेट है जब वो घर पहुंचती है। The water that she has got, it has shit and stones in it. It is not fit for drinking or for cooking. वो पानी लिटरली यूज होता है बाहर डस्ट मड हाउस के बाहर डस्ट को नीचे रखने के लिए। उसकी मम्मी उसको छोटा सा ड्राई पीस ऑफ ब्रेड देती है। रोकिया एक अकेली ऐसी लड़की नहीं है। ऐसे मिलियंस ऑफ लड़कियां हैं अफ्रीका में जो उन्हें लिटरेसी भी नहीं है, स्कूल नहीं जाने को मिलता, स्कूल नहीं जाती तो न्यूट्रिशियस मील नहीं मिलता, और जब वो घर आती हैं तो उनको इतना ऑर्डिनरी खाना मिलता है। आवर फियर इज दैट बाय द टाइम रोकिया हिट्स प्यूबर्टी, शी विल हैव मल्टीपल डेफिशिएंसीज इन हर बॉडी, and when she goes through childbirth, she will pass on these deficiencies to the fetus and to the baby, which means that child poverty is not just one generation, it is passed from generation to generation. Please donate generously for the cause. Now the students were given $5 each. Then the students stepped out of the room. Same donation box था उसी तरह का। एक volunteer ने पूछा, would you like to donate for the cause? बच्चे बहुत स्मार्ट थे, उन्होंने $5 का नोट जेब में डाला, लूज चेंज बॉक्स में डाली। जब काउंटिंग हुई मनी की, they were shocked to see that the donations which had come were very, very different because of the 2 different kinds of presentations which were made. जिन लोगों ने ग्रुप ए ने स्टैटिस्टिक्स वर्जन ऑफ द प्रेजेंटेशन अटेंड करी, उन्होंने तकरीबन $1.20 ऑन एन एवरेज डोनेट किए, वर्सेस जिन्होंने रोकिया की स्टोरी अटेंड करी प्रेजेंटेशन, उन्होंने $2.40 ऑन एन एवरेज दिए, which means that it bumped up twice. Why do you think it happened? ऐसा क्या था कि रोकिया की कहानी ने इम्पैक्ट किया and plain numbers couldn't do it? Heartfelt story, it tugged at the emotions. क्या हो रहा है जब हम एक रोकिया को इमेजिन करते हैं तो?
You should have ever thought of imagining that sugary story, that pain and that agony what a man can go through.
पेन एंड द एगनी। जब हम सिर्फ मिलियंस की बात करते हैं, स्टेटिस्टिक्स की बात करते हैं, तब लोगों को फीलिंग नहीं होती बिकॉज दे कांट विजुअलाइज इट एंड आवर माइंड क्रेव्स विजुअलाइजेशन। द बिग पॉइंट, आई नो इट्स नॉट रिलेटेड टू द ज्वेलरी इंडस्ट्री, बट द बिग पॉइंट इज दैट स्टोरी विल ऑलवेज बी प्लेन डेटा एंड नंबर्स। जोसेफ स्टालिन एक सोवियत लीडर थे और उन्होंने कहा था दैट 1 डेथ इज अ ट्रेजेडी बट 1 मिलियन इज अ स्टेटिस्टिक। तो जब तक हम नंबर्स को बड़े बड़े नंबर्स की तरह रिपोर्ट करेंगे, तब तक वो सिर्फ स्टेटिस्टिक्स होते हैं, पीपल डोंट कनेक्ट टू देम, बट व्हेन यू अटैच अ स्टोरी इट बिकम्स और इट कम्स क्लोजर। द फर्स्ट टेक्निक ऑफ डेटा नैरेटिव और डेटा स्टोरी टेलिंग इज यूज अ सिंगल पर्सन नैरेटिव। आप कोई भी नंबर के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, स्पॉट द पर्सन इन दैट नंबर एंड टेल द स्टोरी। अब डेटा के साथ काम करें, शुड आई शो यू अ डेटा स्लाइड? Okay, this is a very simple slide, most of you will connect with it. Now this is country-wise share of India's gems and jewelry exports from 2022 to 2023. Are you with me so far? 22 से लेके 23 तक का जो फाइनेंशियल ईयर है, उसमें कितने इंडियन जेम्स एक्सपोर्ट हुए हैं आउट ऑफ इंडिया? विद मी सो फार? अब यहाँ पर हम डेटा को ब्रेक डाउन करेंगे। जो ब्लू वाला आपको दिख रहा है पाई का स्लाइस, दिस इज यूएसए का डेटा है, which means that USA में about 33.24% एक्सपोर्ट्स हुए हैं वर्सेस हांगकांग जहां पर more than 23% हुआ है, और UAE में हुए हैं about roughly a little less than 16%. फीलिंग आ रही है? नहीं आ रही? तो हम क्या करेंगे? अभी कहानी कहाँ छुपी है? सबसे पहले सबसे बड़ा वाला हम स्लाइस लेते हैं पाई का। सबसे बड़ा स्लाइस है USA. अब ये दिस इज अ स्टेटिस्टिक राइट, दिस इज अ डेटा कि हम 33.24% एक्सपोर्ट्स करते हैं. इसमें कहानी कहाँ छुपी है? कैन यू टेल मी वेयर कैन वी फाइंड अ स्टोरी ऑफ वन? 247 में से एक रोकिया की कहानी ढूंढी गई थी. डू यू थिंक कि हम 33.24% में से किसी एक की कहानी ढूंढ सकते हैं? टेक अ गेस. वी आर जस्ट प्लेइंग विद इट. से दैट अगेन. वो एक्सपोर्टर की कहानी हो सकती है. हाउ वंडरफुल, वेरी नाइस. एक एक्सपोर्टर
सेलिब्रिटी ने ना भी पहना हो.
हाँ, किसी सेलिब्रिटी ने इंडियन मेक और हैंड क्राफ्टेड.
जैसे मोदी ने वो ग्रीन डायमंड दिया था यूके की 7 कैरेट लैंड डायमंड.
सी स्टोरीज.
मेक those lab-grown diamonds awareness.
Absolutely. So there could be a story there that somebody sported something and you tell the story of one and then you say ये एक अकेला नहीं है, but there are so many others. You can take a story of one single person, and Ella, who's an American, and she loves jewelry and gold and designs from India, and she always sources it from there. There's this particular store on the street, on a particular street in New York, and she always goes and buys her jewelry from there. वो jewelry कहाँ से source होती है? Their connections are from India. तो अगर हमें इंडिया की एक्सपोर्ट की कहानी सुनानी है, we don't have to go straight about India and us and our story और हम इतना कर रहे हैं. You can start by looking at who's the last link in the chain. Who's the last person? Or like you said, I love what you said. I could talk about an exporter. I could talk about their origin story, and we could say that they started small and they just had one store. Now they have so many stores across, and guess what? Now they are also exporting. और ये एक ऐसा नहीं है. इंडिया में कलेक्टिवली इतने ज्वेलर्स हैं जिनका एक्सपोर्ट होता है, डिजाइन्स एंड their ornaments and their jewelry all over the world, and most of it is going to the US. In fact, जो contribution India कर रहा है, which is of 33%. With me so far? So find a story of one. There is always a story. But does it have to be a human story? There can be other. अभी तो हमने डेटा देखा था एक्सपोर्ट्स का, बट डेटा अलग अलग तरीके का हो सकता है. You tell me what kind of data are you dealing with, and we find the story. Who said that? I love what you just said. This is about, by the way, if you're making notes, the first technique of data storytelling is that you find the story of one. कोई एक की कहानी नहीं. आपने बहुत इंटरेस्टिंगली इसको एलिवेट कर दिया. सर, आपका नाम क्या है? जितेंद्र जी. आपके लिए पहले तो हम क्लैप करेंगे, विच इज ब्रिलियंट. आपने इतने स्मार्टली इस नंबर को कंज्यूमेबल बना दिया, edible बना दिया, chewable and digestible बना दिया. The second technique of data storytelling is bite-size the data. Make it so small that people can chew and digest it. Bite-sizing कैसे होता है? जब हम percentage को convert कर देते हैं fraction में. 33% of all exports are happening to US is equal to 3 out of every 10 pieces which are made in India are getting exported to US. उसको और छोटा करेंगे. मैथ अगर याद हो, फ्रैक्शंस किए थे स्कूल में, जिनके बच्चे हैं वो भी पढ़ा रहे होंगे फ्रैक्शंस उनको. 1 out of every 3 pieces which are made here, interestingly, are getting exported to US. Now you know how big that market is, that of every 3 pieces made, 1 gets sent off to US. And that's the potential, and that's the artistry that exists here. So I can do that, brilliant. So I'll do bite sizing of the data. Coming back to the story of a single story, power of a single story. Tell me, does it have to be only humans? So where are these single stories for me? Give me more ideas.
It can be somebody with your pet or something.
Significant object. I love the way you're connecting the dots. Interesting, isn't it? I could talk about one particular piece, like you mentioned. Modi ji ne jab wo gift kiya. Sorry, we have to be respectful and politically correct. So वो एक था piece, और वो lab grown था. वो कितने carats का था, उसकी कितनी clarity थी and all that. That becomes the story of one. So you can look at one particular object and tell the story about it. Are you with me so far? Yeah, so this is the first technique of data storytelling. We are looking at the same data. Where are other stories? एक हुई story that US जा रहा है, one जैसे जितेंद्र जी ने कहा, 1 out of every 3 pieces is getting exported to USA. But अभी बहुत data है इसके अंदर. What other stories do you think are hiding here? Potential. I want to go deeper into this analysis. Tell me what else should I be looking at? Which is the close second export? Hong Kong. Hong Kong is at 23.41. Okay, so 3 out of every 10 is going to US, 2 out of every 10 is going to Hong Kong. I have told this, but how do I find the story? What is the difference between US and Hong Kong market? Who will tell me? In terms of how are they consuming and what are the kind of designs do they like? Does anybody know anything about that? Hong Kong versus US? First, tell me your name. Darshini. Oh, how beautiful. Darshini, go ahead. Do you want the mic? Okay.
Jewelry in India is so versatile that it's been accepted all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
That will be one of our points when we look at this data analysis. And secondly, all of our jewelry, as you talk about story, a lot of the jewelry in Indian market does have a story. Like with links, I'm a designer myself. So when we design links, we call it a sister bracelet. With a specific stone like emerald. You wear emerald for a certain thing. You wear a gomade for a certain thing. We have values for every stone. Every metal has some or the other value in our jewelry. So that is very widely accepted in the world because not every country has that.
Darshini, that's beautiful, but if you look at it, this is the story of a single narrative, which is Emerald Gold.
Right.
But here I'm looking at Hong Kong and USA. Think deeper, tell me where is the story between Hong Kong and USA? Where is the potential to tell a story? Anyone? What kind of designs are liked by Americans versus what kind of designs are liked by people in USA? Do you think there could be a difference? South of India में कैसा jewelry? Temple designs, right? A lot of ethnicity comes in there and culture. North में designs change हो गए हैं. You look at Delhi. Delhi as a market has evolved so much. The designs are very more contemporary, correct? So they're not sticking as much to the older designs. Anything else that you see? What is the biggest difference between Hong Kong and US? The size. So when I say that 1 out of every 3 or 3 out of every 10 is going to the US, which means US is actually not that big a market for us as Hong Kong is, because Hong Kong is tucked away in China somewhere in the corner there, and yet 2 of every 10 is going to Hong Kong, which is my bigger marketplace then. Isn't Hong Kong a bit a bigger marketplace? So sometimes your stories are hiding there. When you're doing comparisons, it could be geographically. So you have to do. So interestingly, if anybody is making notes, the third data storytelling technique is compare. Comparisons are a beautiful and a very powerful tool for you to explain which is a bigger market. Now imagine you have to do exports. You have to engage with people. And when they say, no, but US is a bigger market, you say, actually it isn't if you look at the size. Because concentrated एक जगह पे जब 2 out of every 10 pieces go, Hong Kong has far more potential. Why don't we look for more alliances there? Why don't we look for setting up a store there? It could be any of those factors to discuss. So when you're doing a comparison, it might come from there. So because bite sizing came in between, so the numbering Jitendra ji थोड़ी गड़बड़ हो गई है यहाँ पर. So please pardon because he gave us one gift. But comparison and contrast works very well. It could also be about how intricate the jewelry is. So Hong Kong mein what are the kind of jewelry and designs people are wearing versus designs which are being worn in US could be very different. So it could be at that level because Darshini, you're a designer, then you can think of what kind of designs are accepted. We are back to the same data. Okay, now it's interesting, हम एक ही chart में से कितनी कहानियाँ ढूंढ के निकाल सकते हैं. Same data, and I'm looking at now again, we've got USA, Hong Kong, UAE, and this is the technique that Jitendra ji had already explained, which is 1 out of every 3 pieces which are being worn. It could be women and they are over there. Yeah, so they are in the US. So you have bite sizing in case I didn't show it, bite sizing the data, which is a brilliant way of doing telling your stories, it becomes more chewable and digestible. And now, because we have some time, we still have about 10-15 minutes. Now I'm open to a conversation. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions about stories, about products, about data, and how to tell that story? Very happy to answer. And keep telling me your name. Can I take that chair?
Yes.
Yeah? Tell me your name.
My name is Sambhav.
Okay.
And we are into content creation agency.
Yeah.
So we do model photo shoots, video content, reels like that. So we are B2C client, as our clients like Ganesh Carey.
Sure.
But now we are heading to the retail stores, right? With single retail jewelry. So they have a limited marketing budget and they want to do digital stuff like social media, everything. But how to make that social media engageable? Because वो normal reel डालना, post करना, उससे कुछ audience engage नहीं.
So, do you want to take the onus of it, of doing it yourself, or do you want them to do it for you? You still want to do it yourself. You want to keep promoting,
Yes.
and you want to do social media engagement.
Yes.
That's a brilliant question, Sambhav. और ये असंभव नहीं है, ये तो बहुत संभव है.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example for this. Because I'm a storyteller, I have to first tell you a story and then come to the point. So you'll just have to live with that. आपने क्राई का नाम सुना है, चाइल्ड रिलीफ इन यू. सो क्राई ऑफ कोर्स इज इन अगेन द स्पेस ऑफ चाइल्ड वेलफेयर एंड ऑल दैट. बहुत ही हॉरिफिक नंबर्स उन्हें पब्लिश करने थे कि आजकल गारमेंट इंडस्ट्री में कितने बच्चे काम कर रहे हैं. That's what they wanted to talk about. And they wanted to raise funds कि उन बच्चों को गारमेंट इंडस्ट्री से बाहर निकाल कर अगर उनको पढ़ाई करानी है और उनको लाइफ बेटर करना है, हाउ टू डू दैट. बट वही बात है, अगर आप डेटा पब्लिश करेंगे, इट डजंट स्पीक टू द हार्ट. सो दे वांटेड टू टेल अ वेरी इवोकेटिव स्टोरी एंड दिस इज व्हाट दे डिड. उन्होंने सोशल मीडिया लेवरेज करा विद जस्ट वन पिक्चर. द पिक्चर वॉज ऑफ अ वाइट टी शर्ट, अ रेगुलर टी शर्ट दैट यू पिक अप एट एनी स्टोर. आप मैक्स में जाएंगे या आप मार्क्स एंड स्पेंसर में जाएंगे, एक राउंड कॉलर का वाइट टी शर्ट मिल जाता है. उस टी शर्ट का जो लेबल था, आपको पता है टी शर्ट के पीछे एक लेबल होता है, उस लेबल पर लिखा हुआ था. सो इट वाज अ क्लियर शॉट ऑफ द लेबल एंड यू कुड जस्ट सी अबाउट दिस मच ऑफ द टी शर्ट. द लेबल सेड फॉर चिल्ड्रन aged 6 to 12, made by children aged 6 to 12. And that was just a picture and the visual. और उस ad जो social media पे आया, उसके नीचे caption में now people wanted to read what it means. And then it talked about how many children aged 6 to 12 are working in the garment industry today. And how dismal their pay is. They literally get paid less than 20 rupees a month for working in horrific conditions. They're not given food, clothing or whatever, a clean environment to stay. There are rats all over, they get bitten at night and all of those things too. But they used a visual and they used a picture and they told the story. Now coming back to what you were talking about in terms of product placement, it could be even though you are doing B2C, yeah, B2C sales, if you want it to catch on, think differently and think how to draw people's eyeballs and how can you leverage visual storytelling. I know there's a lot of reels that can be made, but reels itne ho gaye hain. I'm looking at my sister's daughter also dancing in a reel, plus I'm watching music reels, plus I'm watching aapka ad aayega as a reel, it doesn't capture. Interestingly, wo 5 and 30, whatever 15 seconds doesn't do the job because we're mindlessly scrolling. If you can get people to pause, wonder what it is, and then read, that retention happens far more. If you can get people to read, because that's where their brain gets activated and engaged. You have to look at how to engage your audience. So think of visual storytelling. I'll give you an idea here. Especially look at what is the trend which is taking place in the world today. What is the big change do you think taking place in the world today? The biggest change that even corporates are talking about, everybody is talking about, law में भी हो रहा है, धरने दे रहे हैं लोग, cases file हो रहे हैं, country celebrate कर रही है. Okay, climate change is one. Anything else? Deep fake, huh?
Yeah.
AI. You have a lot.
People are moving towards sustainability.
Sustainability, interesting. Sustainability. आपको देखना है what is the current wave going on. Okay. Now, because you're in the jewelry business, sustainability will come in. Correct? Is this ethically produced and procured product? And people want to know ये कहाँ से आया है. So one is obtaining. So ethically obtained. Second is sustainability. Is it going to? Do we do minimalistic? Like you said, climate change. The climate में impact नहीं है. We do work in a way that it doesn't harm the climate. Another story could be like we were diversity and inclusion. Why is jewelry only a woman's business? Why are we not inviting men or transgenders into our stores yet? Can I catch eyeballs? You've seen these reels. Oh, do you know this song? कल रात आया मेरे घर कुछ. Have you heard that song? आजकल इसकी बहुत रील बन रही है. People are sitting and they're doing aya and all that. I love watching reels like that where people are dancing. So there's this guy who's got long hair and he's bearded like you, somewhat, and he wears kurtas and he keeps his hair open and he wears kajal and he looks so attractive and so beautiful when he does his imitation of Kal Raat Aaya, Mera Ram Bhi Le Ja, Mera Naam Bhi Le Ja, and he does all that. I was thinking that why don't we jump onto the trends which are taking place right now? Why don't I get them as, you've got RJ Karishma? You've heard of RJ Karishma? क्या कर रहे हो आप लोग Instagram पे नहीं? How will you become storytellers if you're not looking at what are the stories taking place? Do you know about Ayyo Shraddha? You've heard of Ayyo Shraddha? Okay, अब तो शर्म के मारे भी लोग बोलेंगे मैंने सुना. Please get on Instagram. Social media पे जाओ, you'll find stories there. So you have these influencers, right? Influencers Tata Sky का ad भी promote करते हैं. How not to get scammed होता है. Why can't I get an influencer and get them to promote and show up with our jewelry? Because we're inclusive. So ideas are all over. You have to see what are the current stories standing out and then sort of grab ideas, but do something that others aren't. That's just one of the examples. Yes, Darshana. How beautiful a question. It's about value alignment. So you can't just see one reel on Instagram because Tanya says, get on Instagram. And then say, this is the person. You have to see over a period of time, last few months, years, what is the kind of content they have created and where is their value aligned. Okay. What is that? Tambaku thingy, no? What are they called? Tambaku ito. The Ajay Devgan, Akshay Kumar. Vimal Supari. So, you know, when these actors, they did this ad, you know, the print ads that came, no? And then video ads, all of them promoting Vimal Supari and all that. Their fans got deeply offended. They said, how are you promoting this? So, it's also about the celebrity or the influencer that you're choosing. Would people be okay with them promoting that product or becoming brand ambassadors? Because unki personality ke saath, they don't want to match it. So, even for influencers, the biggest thing with influencers is Darshini, right? Darshini, the biggest thing with influencers is that they already have a specific fan following. And if you want to reach those people, then you have to see aapka value system match karta hai ki nahi unke saath. Yeah. Before I go on, I want to give you another example. You've heard of Hilton, right? The chain of hotels. They were looking for a brand ambassador. This happened just a while back, okay? So they were trying to zero in on who their brand ambassador is going to be. They were just about to close in on. Can we close the camera, please, for 5 minutes? Who's managing the camera? Can you close the camera for 5 minutes? I don't want this going on. Can you close the camera for 5 minutes? Thank you.
You'll always be awesome. And sometimes flowers can say better than words.
Oh, thank you.
You are a
so
big
much.
entry.
Thank you so much. Deeply appreciate your sticking around. Thank you. Thank you so much. So sorry. Did you charge my phone?